Welcome to the Beyond You podcast, where we have real conversations about healing, trusting yourself again, and building the kind of relationships that actually feel good. I'm Samantha, and if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, like you're doing all the right things but still feeling disconnected, you're in the right place. Because here we go beyond the surface, beyond the hurt, beyond the patterns that keep you stuck. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Hey beautiful, welcome back to Beyond You. Before we dive in today, I need to ask you something that might sting a little. How many times have you stayed in a relationship that was hurting you because you believed you could love someone into being better? And how many times have you looked at someone's potential instead of the reality and thought, if I just love them enough, if I just show them what healthy love looks like, they'll change? If you're sitting there feeling a little called out right now, you are not alone, and more importantly, you are not naive or foolish for believing in people's capacity to grow. Your heart is so beautiful, and your desire to see the best in others is actually a gift. But today, we need to talk about the difference between supporting someone's growth and taking responsibility for their healing, because here's what I've learned, both in my own relationships and in working with hundreds of women. You cannot love someone into wholeness. You cannot heal someone else's trauma. You cannot fix what you did not break. And trying to do so will exhaust your spirit and leave you wondering why you keep attracting people who need saving instead of people who are ready to love you. So let me tell you about the time I almost lost myself trying to heal a man who had no intention of getting better, because I think you'll recognize this pattern. We'll just call him Anthony, okay? Okay, these random names, but we'll just call him Anthony. And when I met him, he was going through what he called the hardest time of his life, right? He just got out of a toxic relationship. He was struggling with depression. He felt like he couldn't trust anyone. And y'all, my heart went out to him, right? We feel so bad, getting so involved in someone else's story. So he would tell me these stories about how his ex had damaged his ability to trust, how his childhood had messed him up, how he'd never had anyone really love him the right way. And something in me when I was younger lit up like, oh, me, I can be that person. I can show him what real love looks like. I started making myself available for his 2 a.m. crisis calls. I would cancel my own plans when he was having a bad day, needed someone to talk to. I found myself constantly trying to prove to him that not all women were like his ex, and that I was different and I was safe. So I became his unpaid therapist, his emotional support system, his emotional coach, his cheerleader, his validator. And I thought I was being a good partner, but really I was being a fixer. I was so focused on healing his wounds that I stopped paying attention to how he was treating me. And here's what I want you to know that took me way too long to realize. Anthony wasn't actually interested in healing. He was interested in having someone manage his emotions for him. I need you to hear that. He was interested in having someone manage his emotions for him. He liked having someone to call when he was spiraling, someone to make him feel better about himself, someone to blame when things went wrong. And no, this always happen in partnerships too. This also happens with friends who do this as well. So if this resonates to you as just being a friend who does this, tell me when I've had people who try to do that as well. So every time I would try to address something that was bothering me and, our relationship in the past, he would turn it back to his trauma. Well, I have trust issues. I'm not good at this because of what she did to me. Or I'm doing the best I can with what I've been through. And because I had positioned myself as his healer, I felt guilty for having needs. I felt selfish for wanting him to show up for me the way I was showing up for him. I kept thinking he's been through so much. I should be more understanding. It took me almost a year to realize that I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a rescue mission. And the person I was trying to save wasn't actually drowning. He was floating. Let me do all the work while he remained comfortable in his dysfunction. That's when I learned the difference between someone who's genuinely working on themselves and someone who just likes having someone else do emotional labor for them. And a lot of times we don't even realize on why we try to heal others. So let's talk about why so many of us fall into this pattern, because it's not random. There are real reasons why we feel drawn to people who need healing, and understanding these reasons can help us break the cycle. First, many of us learned early that love is earned through service. Maybe you were the child who took care of everyone else's emotions in your family. Maybe you learned that being helpful, being needed, being the one who fixes things is how you secure your place in people's lives. For women especially, we've socialized to believe that nurturing and healing others is our natural role. We're told we're natural caretakers, that we're good at emotional labor, that we have some special ability to see people's potential and help them reach it. And for just my women of color listening, there's often extra layer here. We might carry this sense that we need to be the strong one, the one who can handle everything, the one who helps others heal from the wounds that the world has inflicted on them. We might feel like it's our responsibility to help repair what systems of oppression have broken. I mean, I could go on and on about this. There's also something seductive about being someone's savior, and I feel like that's why we do it as well, because it makes us feel special, needed, irreplaceable. When someone tells you you're the only one who understands me, or I've never felt this safe with anyone, it can feel like you found your purpose. But I want you and I need you to understand being needed is not the same thing as being loved. Being someone's emotional support system is not the same as being their partner. And taking responsibility for someone else's healing is not the same as building a healthy relationship. When you position yourself as someone's healer, you're actually creating an imbalanced dynamic where they get to remain a patient and you become responsible for their emotional well-being. That's not love, that's codependency. So I know this can be a shock to some when even talking about this. And so now I want to be really clear about something, because I don't want you to think I'm saying you should never support someone you care about. There's a big difference between supporting someone's growth and taking responsibility for their healing. Supporting someone's growth looks like encouraging them when they're taking steps to work on themselves, celebrating their progress and acknowledging their efforts, being patient when they're going through difficult times, offering comfort during their healing process, or even holding space for their emotions without trying to fix them. So understand that. But the opposite, taking responsibility for their healing, looks like making excuses for their behavior because of their past, constantly walking on eggshells to avoid triggering them, feeling guilty when you have needs because they're going through something, becoming their therapist, coach, and emotional manager, and a lot of times believing that your love alone can fix their problems. Let me give you some real examples of what this difference looks like, because I know just even talking about it can feel just a lot, you know? So when it comes for support, I can see you're really struggling with this, and I want you to know I'm here for you. Have you thought about talking to someone professional about it? Okay, that is what support looks like. When you are taking responsibility, what happens? You'll say something like this: I know you're having a hard time, so don't worry about our date tonight. I'll just stay home and be available in case you need to talk. I want you to be able to see the difference here. Okay, I'll give another example. When you are giving support, that looks like, I understand that your past relationships have been difficult, and I'm willing to be patient as you work through those trust issues with your therapist. Taking responsibility, that looks like, I know you have trust issues, so I won't bring up the fact that you went through my phone because I don't want to trigger you. So I really want you to see how one is you managing someone's emotions and the other one is just being right next to the person, right? It's definitely a difference there. So I'll give one more example to kind of really hone in on this. So what support looks like in this next example: I love you, and I also need you to take responsibility for how you're treating me. Your trauma explains your behavior, but it doesn't excuse it, right? But taking responsibility over someone else, it looks like, I know you're not usually like this. You're just going through a lot right now. I'm sure things will get better once you feel more stable, right? So I want you to see on the ones that are taking responsibility, you are blaming yourself in some way. You're taking responsibility for someone else having a feeling that they are not willing to address. I think we talked about this in previous episodes before. So make sure if you are loving this episode that you like, you subscribe, because we always drop these every week. But I want you to see on how you do not have to take someone else's emotions on. They're allowed to feel their own emotions. So before, what I called this in previous episodes was called overly empathetic, right? You're so involved in someone else's story. You feel like we're the one to fix it. Understanding empathy is just you can see that it's hard and they need to work through it. So I see this as hard for you, period. We don't need to solve how someone feels, solve exactly on them not feeling a certain way. We can be beside them, right? I know you're going to figure it out for yourself. But we don't have to take the emotions from them. They're allowed to feel their own emotions. They're fully grown to feel their own emotions. So I want you to, do you see the difference? In the first example is you're being loving and supportive while maintaining your boundaries and encouraging them to take ownership of their healing. In the second example, though, the ones that take responsibility, you're enabling their dysfunction and sacrificing your own well-being to manage their emotions. And just the truth in general, people can only heal themselves. You can be a loving witness to their process, but you cannot do the work for them. And when you try to, you actually rob them of the opportunity to develop their own emotional regulation skills and coping mechanisms. Right? And I have to kind of say it like that because we tend to want to get all the life experience for ourselves, right? When I say all life experience for ourselves, we just want to rescue people from their problems, right? We're the ones that can fix it. Oh, you can't deal with it. It's okay for people to manage their own problems. Let them get their own life experience for themselves. So let's now talk about what happens when you take on the role of healer in your relationships because the cost is real and it's significant. First, understand that, and you might be feeling this now if you're doing this, you exhaust yourself. You pour so much energy into managing someone else's emotions that you have nothing left for your own needs, your own growth, your own healing. You become depleted, resentful, and burnt out. And understand that those are signs that you are crossing your own boundaries there when you have those feelings. Second, you lose yourself in the process. You become so focused on their feelings, their triggers, their needs that you forget what you want and need. You start making decisions based on what will keep them stable rather than what will make you happy. Third, you attract people who aren't ready for real partnership. When you lead with your ability to heal and fix, you're going to attract people who are looking for a therapist, not a partner. You'll keep dating people who are emotionally unavailable because they don't have to be available. You're doing all the emotional work. Why would they want to? Fourth, you enable dysfunction. When you consistently make excuses for someone else's behavior, when you protect them from having consequences of their actions, when you take responsibility for their emotions, you're actually preventing them from growing. You're helping them stay stuck in their patterns. And finally, you miss out on the kind of love you actually deserve and are worthy of. While you're busy trying to heal someone else, you're not available for someone who's already done their work, someone who's ready to love you as an equal partner, someone who can support your growth instead of just consuming your energy. And I had a client who said something that hit me right in the chest. I realized I was so busy trying to be the woman he needed that I forgot to ask if he was the man I needed. Whew. And she said that. That just was so powerful. But that is the cost of being everyone's healer. You lose sight of your own worth and your own needs in the process. So now we're going to get into on how to recognize when you're trying to heal someone. Because I really want to get, each episode we try to get practical. I want to give you some clear signs that you might be trying to heal someone instead of just loving them. Because sometimes we're so deep in these patterns that we can't see them clearly. So, are you, one, you're constantly making excuses for their behavior. So if you find yourself saying things like, he's not usually like this, or he's just going through a lot, or she doesn't mean to be so critical, she's just insecure, you might be taking responsibility for their actions instead of holding them accountable. And if any of these resonate with you, just write down in the comments what resonates with you, because I want to hear if I'm talking to the right people. You feel guilty for having needs. When you need something from them, attention, affection, support, your first thought is, but they're dealing with so much, I shouldn't add to their stress. Understand that is a red flag. 3, you're their emotional manager. You find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring their mood, trying to prevent them from getting upset, managing their emotional reactions. Girl, that is not your job. Next, you believe you're the only one who can help them. They've told you that you're the only one who understands them, that you're different from everyone else, you're the only one who can handle their issues. That is not romantic. That's manipulation. And then also, and this could apply for some, you're researching their mental health conditions. You're Googling their depression, their anxiety, their trauma response, trying to understand how to help them heal. Meanwhile, they're not doing any of this work themselves. You're giving more than you're receiving. You're constantly available for their crisis, but when you need support, they're not emotionally available. You're doing all the emotional labor in their relationship. Next, you're hoping they'll change. You're not in love with who they are right now. You're in love with who they could become if they just worked on themselves. So you're dating their potential, not their reality. And a lot of times you feel responsible for their healing. When they have setbacks, you feel like you failed them. When they make progress, you feel like you deserve credit. Their emotional journey has become your emotional journey, and that's how you can tell. And lastly, you're sacrificing your own well-being. You're canceling your own therapy appointments to be available for their crisis. You're neglecting your own self-care to take care of them. You're putting your own healing on hold to focus on theirs. If you're recognizing yourself in any of these patterns, please know that you're not alone and you're not wrong for caring deeply about people. But you need to understand that this level of caretaking isn't sustainable. And it's not healthy for either of you. Now, let's talk about how to set boundaries when you're dealing with someone who's struggling, because I know this feels complicated. You don't want to abandon someone who's hurting, but you also can't sacrifice your own well-being to manage their emotions. So here are some scripts that can help. When they're having a crisis and expecting you to drop everything, you can say something like, I can see you're really struggling right now and I care about you. I'm not available to talk right now, but I hope you'll reach out to, you can include anybody here, but therapist, friend, family member, or call the crisis line if you need immediate support. Next, when they're using their trauma as an excuse for bad behavior. I understand that you've been through a lot and I have compassion for your pain. Your trauma explains your behavior, but it doesn't make it okay to treat me this way. I need you to take responsibility for how you're showing up in our relationship. And I know that these can seem hard, especially as people pleasers or former people pleasers, like really studying your truth and your authenticity can feel like a lot when you're feeling this way, but don't want to say it or hurt their feelings. Again, that's you managing someone's emotions. You're being that emotional manager that I've been talking about. That's exactly why we're doing this for you. Okay. So next, when they're making you responsible for the emotional regulation, you can say something like, I love you and I'm not responsible for managing your emotions. When you're feeling overwhelmed, I need to use your own coping skills or reach out to your therapist. I'm here to support you, but I can't be your emotional manager. And I know these can seem really tough, right? So if it's something where you can want to just say the first part, I love you, but I'm not able to help you manage your emotions right now, feel free to reach out. You can give them like tools to be able to like use a crisis hotline we talked about before, and understand when they're not doing their own work, it's their own choice not to do the work. But you have to accept that they're not willing to do the work on themselves. Because when they're not doing the work but expecting you to help them, you can say something like, I've noticed that you talk a lot about wanting to heal and grow, but I haven't seen you taking concrete steps to work on these issues. I'm willing to support you in your healing journey, but I need to see you actively participating in it. And also, when they're draining your energy with constant emotional dumping, which I had a consultation about earlier, which I know can be a lot, so it's perfect timing. I care about what you're going through, and I'm not able to be your primary emotional support right now. I think it would be really helpful for you to talk to a professional about these feelings. Remember, setting boundaries with someone who's struggling doesn't make you heartless or selfish. It makes you responsible for your own well-being, which is actually the most loving thing you can do for the both of you. So here's what I want you to understand. When you stop trying to heal everyone, you create space for people who are already doing their own work to find you. Healthy partners don't need you to save them. They don't need you to fix them or manage their emotions or make excuses for their behavior. They show up as whole people who are responsible for their own healing and growth. This doesn't mean they're perfect or that they don't have struggles. Everyone has things they're working on, but there's a difference between someone who's actively working on themselves and someone who's just expecting to do the work for them. So a healthy partner takes responsibility for their own emotional regulation, goes to therapy, or has other support systems for their healing. They will treat you well even when they're going through difficult times. They support your growth and healing just as much as you support theirs. They do not use their past as an excuse for present bad behavior. When you stop being attracted to people who need saving, you become available for people who are ready for real partnership, you stop dating potential and you start dating reality. And the beautiful thing about this is when you're in a healthy relationship, you get to focus on your own growth and healing. You get to be supporting your journey instead of always being the one doing the supporting. So understand, I need you to hear this. Your compassion is not a weakness, but it should never come at the expense of your own well-being. You can have a big heart and firm boundaries. You can be loving or refuse to be someone's unpaid therapist or emotional coach. You're not responsible for healing anyone else but yourself. And when you focus on your own healing, when you show up as a whole person who's done their work, you attract other people who are ready for real love. The right person won't need you to save them. They'll be grateful for your support, but they won't make you responsible for their emotional well-being. They'll show up for you just as much as you show up for them. But before I go, I want you to ask yourself, what would change if I stopped trying to heal everyone else and focus on attracting people who are already committed to healing themselves? Okay, let me know down in the comments that answer to that question. If this episode helps you recognize some patterns you're ready to change, please share it with someone who needs to hear it too. And remember, you deserve to be loved, not just needed. You deserve partnership and not just the opportunity to be someone's savior. Your healing matters too, and it's not selfish to prioritize it. I love you. I see your beautiful heart, and I'll talk to you next week. You can find me on TikTok at Moving Beyond You or on Instagram at imsamantha.a. And we always have a newsletter that we send out every week with show notes that you can be able to take home with you. That can give you good tidbits each week. So that will be also down below. All right. You have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you next week.